Walter Mignolo's Local Histories, Global Designs is a work in post-colonial theory, decolonial thought, and cultural studies. It challenges the foundational assumptions of Western historiography, epistemology, and globalization. Mignolo argues that we cannot understand the modern world unless we recognize that modernity and coloniality are two sides of the same coin. They are inseparable. One cannot exist without the other. To understand Mignolo's argument, we must begin with his engagement with Immanuel Wallerstein's world systems theory. While Wallerstein mapped the modern world system primarily through economic and geopolitical shifts, Mignolo insists that his system is fundamentally a modern colonial world system. The system does not begin with industrial revolution or the enlightenment in the 18th century. Rather, its genesis is anchored in 1492 with the Spanish and Portuguese colonization of the Americas. The Atlantic encounter marked the birth of both the modern world and its permanent shadow, coloniality. From the very beginning, modernity and coloniality were intertwined. Colonial difference is the spatial and epistemological gap between the locus of enunciation of the hegemonic center, Europe, and the North Atlantic, and the subalternized histories and knowledges of the colonized exterior, the Americas, Africa, and Asia. The colonial difference is the critical terrain where global designs meet local histories. It is the space where power is negotiated and resisted. An important conceptual distinction in Mignolo's work, drawn heavily from sociologist Annibal Mignolo, is the difference between colonialism and coloniality. Colonialism refers to specific historical periods of administrative occupation and direct political military control by a foreign power over a territory. It is a specific historical phenomenon with a beginning and an end. Coloniality, by contrast, is the underlying, enduring matrix of power that survived formal decolonization and the end of political administrations. Even after colonies became independent, the structures of power, knowledge, and culture that colonialism created continued to shape the world. Coloniality is the lasting impact of colonialism. Coloniality of power operates through four interlocking dimensions. First, there is the classification and reclassification of the global population using racial and cultural hierarchies. Second, there are institutional structures designed to manage these classifications, such as states, churches, and universities. Third, there is the spatial organization of the planet, dividing the world into centers and peripheries, first and third worlds. Fourth, there is epistemic control, the subjugation of subaltern knowledges, and the universalization of Western epistemology as the sole legitimate model of reason. Traditional Western epistemology operates under a zero-point hubris. This is the Cartesian illusion that knowledge can be produced from no specific place or time. It presents a local European perspective as a universal transcendent truth. This is encapsulated in Descartes' famous statement, "I think, therefore I am." The thinker is assumed to have no location, no history, no body. Mignolo counters this with the geopolitics of knowledge. He insists that I am where I think. All knowledge production is geographically and historically located. There is no view from nowhere. Every perspective comes from somewhere. Just as Edward Said critiqued Orientalism as the Western discursive construction of the East, Mignolo defines Occidentalism as the overarching imperial imaginary that construct the West as the pinnacle of human history, civilization, and reason. Occidentalism relegates other cultures to the pre-modern, traditional, or barbaric. It is the ideological foundation of colonial domination. To break free from this trap, Mignolo proposes moving beyond Eurocentric critiques toward a post-Occidental horizon that decenters Western epistemology. This does not mean rejecting Western thought entirely. It means recognizing its limits and opening up space for other ways of knowing. If Western knowledge has systematically delegitimized non-Western cognitive systems, how do subaltern subjects fight back? Mignolo's answer is border thinking or border gnosis. This is the critical epistemology forged at the intersecting borders, both interior and exterior, of the modern colonial world system. Border thinking is thinking from the perspective of the colonial difference. It does not simply invert binaries, replacing Eurocentrism with another fundamentalism. Rather, it uses the subalternized experiences of the border to break down dichotomies altogether. It thinks from the in-between space. Border gnoseology recognizes the knowledge produced from subaltern locations such as indigenous philosophies, African cosmologies, and hybrid mestiza consciousness possesses radical theoretical and political validity. These are not inferior forms of knowledge. They are different ways of understanding the world that have been suppressed by colonial power. Mignolo also explores how border thinking manifests linguistically through bilanguaging. This means living and thinking between imperial languages and subaltern tongues. Language is never neutral. It carries the historical weight of geopolitical power. Bilanguaging is a form of resistance. It refuses to accept the dominance of one language over another. Mignolo's work forces us to rethink the very nature of human knowledge, globalization, and power. By shifting our analytical focus from the triumphal narrative of Western modernity to the hidden underside of coloniality, he equips us with border thinking. This is a vital theoretical tool to decolonize scholarship and imagine an other logic for a pluriversal world. A pluriversal world is one where many different ways of knowing and being can coexist. It is a world where the West is not the center and everyone else is not the periphery. It is a world where difference is not a threat but a resource. Mignolo's work challenges us to think beyond the categories that colonialism has imposed on us. It asks us to listen to voices that have been silenced. It reminds us that knowledge is always political and always located.